After 27 years, the NHL's biggest failure might finally be over in the Arizona Coyotes. And with a recent proposal to build a new stadium completely falling through, relocation seems more likely than ever. But we're going to be breaking down why this is so important, why this could mean the relocation for the Arizona Coyotes, and where they could possibly relocate in the future as well. So watch till the end for the complete breakdown of this whole situation. And hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey content just like this all throughout the offseason and the playoffs. You won't want to miss it. Now, no hyperbole. Yesterday, May 16th, was the biggest day in Arizona Coyotes history. And just like a lot of the franchise up to this point, it was an absolute bust. The city of Tempe had a huge vote to determine whether a $2.1 billion district would come into play on a landfill, which would give the Coyotes as well a 16,000 person stadium, and of course the heart of Tempe. And there was a huge vote, a huge campaign behind it, but the early results were unfortunate and it didn't go through. The city of Tempe didn't vote for it, the residents of Tempe didn't vote for it, and now the Coyotes practically have no home after 2025. And those initial returns were horrible, with a 56% vote saying no on the Coyotes' proposition on building this entertainment district as well as a new stadium for the Yotes, and it was a resounding no and disapproval to bring the Coyotes in a much better situation. Now, Coyotes president and CEO Xavier Gutierrez had some really choice words after that, saying, "While we wanted a different outcome, we remain grateful to all those who volunteered their time and talent. What is next for the franchise will be evaluated by our owners and the National Hockey League over the coming weeks." That doesn't really sound like a quote from a CEO that thinks that his team is going to be staying in Arizona for too much longer. But the Coyotes have just been through so much, first playing in Phoenix, then in Glendale in 2003 up until last season, and all of the ownership and just confusion and turmoil, of course, leading to the NHL having to come in and own the team for a short while in 2009 because of bankruptcy, and all the rumors about Winnipeg and Seattle about potential relocation. It was all around the franchise for so long, for so many years. It felt like every single year there was a new rumor about where the Coyotes could end up going, what's the future about this team, and it was just simply doomed from the start. Now, Elliotte Friedman on the recent 32 Thoughts podcast had so much to say about this Coyotes situation and give us a lot as well. He said this in the Coyotes: "I don't think the NHL wants to abandon the Arizona market unless it absolutely has to. It's too big and it's one of the largest metro markets in the United States. I think they will not leave until they go down every path." And I mean, is there an argument to be made that they haven't gone down every path at this point? It seems like they have, and it seems like nothing is working. Now, he said this about Suns owner Matt Ishbia. "I wouldn't be surprised if Gary Bettman in the NHL, if they haven't already, met with him to gauge his interest in supporting the idea of turning the Suns' current rink into a facility that can support the Coyotes." But that's also been debated a lot as well, and that's something that we've seen been just rejected and rejected again and again, and it doesn't feel like that's going to happen either. And then he goes on to say, "If there is no local option with the Suns, then it's about moving the team. I think the question becomes, do you move the team now, or do they play another year there?" And that's the thing, considering it is relocation, they can get a little bit of a quicker turnaround than maybe an expansion team perhaps, because there's a lot less financially to discuss. But it seems like, again, with the Suns option, that might be the only hope left for the Coyotes, but that's a hope that I think is fleeting if it was ever even there in the first place. And like Friedman mentions, it's about moving the team. And to me, that's what we will see. But then Elliotte Friedman drops an absolute bomb and mentions 4 different cities the Coyotes could be relocated to. One that's really weird and one city that's completely off the list. He mentions Houston, Salt Lake City, Sacramento, or Kansas City if the Coyotes relocate. Now, here's the thing. Let's break this down for a little bit. No Quebec City. Yes, Sacramento? I don't know what's going on here. Obviously, Quebec, I think, is a little bit of a far shot more than people understand, because I just don't think the NHL wants more Canadian markets. And even though Quebec does have that established NHL stadium, I do feel like the NHL is still prioritizing growth, and that's what they should still be doing. But Sacramento is wild. Sacramento is absolutely wild. I don't know why you would do that. But Houston as the top one absolutely makes sense. To me, if there's any city that the Coyotes relocate to, it's going to be Houston. That makes the most sense. And Texas has already proven they can support NHL hockey in so many ways. The Stars are consistently one of the better teams attendance-wise, and you see how wild they go every single year, and attendance does not drop there. Houston would be really interesting, and they're a rabid sports market. And you can see as well with the Texas Stars and how well they do as well, and just how many different teams are in Texas and how solid they're doing. I think Houston would be wonderful for the NHL and would give the Dallas Stars an actual rival, which I would love to see. Then you got Salt Lake City, which would be interesting. Of course, they got the Jazz there. In terms of Salt Lake, they are an absolute basketball town in every single way. So even though Salt Lake City would be cool, I'm not sure if it would be the best fit, even though, yeah, there's not a lot of sports there. I still think the sports they have there, they're pretty devoted to those already. So we'll see if that ends up happening. Sacramento is just wild. I don't know if they'd go for another California team. I don't know what really the reason would be for that. I feel like most people would already be LA Kings fans. I mean, on top of being Sacramento Kings fans, so it's a little bit weird there. Kansas City would be interesting as well. Another city that is rabid for sports, and we'll see if that maybe develops. But to me, I think Houston and Kansas City are probably the most likely right now. Now, what's interesting about Kansas City as well is they also have potentially an NHL-ready stadium in the T-Mobile Center in Missouri, and you can see as well what they're able to do capacity-wise for ice hockey, 17,544. That's a solid rink. That's a solid position to be in, and if management, if ownership does come into play, if they can finally get somebody to be the owner there in Kansas City, then it could honestly be, I think, a pretty good market for the NHL. But out of these four locations, I would definitely rank Houston number one, Kansas City second, Salt Lake three, and then way down below in Sacramento. Again, I just feel like the NHL is already good enough with how many California teams there are. I mean, even though I get there's reasons why. I mean, Anaheim and San Jose are down there in the worst in terms of attendance. I don't think they need another situation like that, even if growth is the priority. And I feel like if the Coyotes are going to move, they got to move to somewhere that can have at least an established fan base. Houston, again, makes the most sense for me. Then you got Elliot Freeman on 32 Thoughts talking about Quebec City specifically as a relocation spot. I think Quebec City is harder in this case because it's an eastern city as opposed to a western one, and I think they would like to keep the western balance, which is a point, and is a point also why Sacramento would be especially weird. But if we're talking about eastern as well, there would probably have to be an eastern team that really shouldn't be a western team in the west. Maybe a team like Detroit would have to go back or something like that. It would have to be a situation like that, where a team that's in the east that should be in the east would probably have to be moved back to the west, and it would create some confusion. But again, it is another reason why I think the NHL might be looking away. Now, Elliot Freeman talking about Houston specifically here, which is really interesting. The one thing there is that Houston's owner, when they met with him, it wasn't at a number that the NHL liked. So I don't know if that's changed or how it would go, but that was the one thing I know they were concerned about. So that seems like it might be a roadblock, and the owner in Houston might not have as much as the NHL wants, but at the same time, again, it does make sense location-wise. And then says, at a time when Ottawa's story is incredible because of the kind of interest that's in the team and the passion that seems to be around owning the team, you want that kind of passion around your ownership group, and they didn't sense it from Houston. So interesting notes there regarding the NHL and Houston and potential ownership, and that again might be the only thing that does block it. Maybe we see that more in Kansas City perhaps, but it seems like maybe the ownership interest in Houston might not be as much as we initially thought. Now, one last thing as well on the cities that Elliot Freeman mentions, and I didn't think about this earlier, what are the other omissions from this list? They're talking about Sacramento. There is no Atlanta mentioned here, and there's a big interest there. Kevin Weeks has speculated that Atlanta might be coming back. I didn't really see it as too likely because of just the arena situation there and what would take ownership-wise and everything like that. But it seems like Atlanta isn't really a option for the NHL right now. It isn't even being floated around as an option among US cities, and that's really interesting. Of course, with the Thrashers and how much that was a failure as well, even though I think the fan base could still be solid there, just like I think the Arizona Coyotes needed better and the fans deserve better there, it seems like Atlanta won't be an option for the NHL, which does break my Thrashers heart, but it does make sense. But But it's just so sad, man, because I feel like Coyotes fans deserve so much better. Like I said, the Coyotes made the playoffs 5 times since the 2001 season, and only won in the first round once. Of course, it was that 2012 season, that magical run going in the Western Conference Final, and in the bubble, it was a qualifying round, so technically not the first round. So the Coyotes only made it past the first round once in 7 years. All right, 27 years. The Coyotes only made it past the first round. They only made it to the second round once, one season. That's it. Then you combine, of course, the ownership troubles and, again, the stadium difficulties and just all the just lack of continuity, moving so many different times, so many different cities, trying to go from Phoenix to Glendale, now to Tempe, and it's just, how are Coyotes fans supposed to be Coyotes fans? You know, how are they supposed to grow there? I mean, you see the junior Coyotes being one of the best youth programs in the entire United States. There's growth there, and there's still passionate fans there, and Coyotes fans are passionate as you'll ever get. They're Arizona Coyotes fans. They have to be. Look at what this franchise has done to them. Look what they've had to endure time and time again, and they go through this complete rebuild, and now they're gonna be gone now. After going through this complete rebuild for these last 2 years and having to deal with all that and going through all the constant just scrutiny and bashing from everybody else in the NHL, everybody else in the hockey world saying that they have no fans. Imagine being an Arizona Coyotes fan, sticking with your team when they can't even stick with you. I mean, when almost every fan base is attacking your team, almost every fan base is attacking your fan base, and still you're Arizona Coyotes fans, and this is what you have to show for. This is what you get back. You get just an absolute slap to the face after so long, after so many years of wishing for better, after wanting for better, after it looked like it could get better with the new ownership, looking like it could be better after this full restarted rebuild. And now that rebuild is likely going to be complete on a different city, with a different fan base, with a different roster. And man, I just can't help but feel for Coyotes fans. After so long, after so much disastrous franchise ownership, they have this to show for it. And it's just so sad to see. And a part of my heart breaks because I do think if the Coyotes were actually good and if they were in a good arena situation, then things would be much better. And I think they would be much better and would be much better for the NHL. But those situations didn't come to pass, and the constant ownership troubles, the constant relocation troubles finally have crept up to them. And even though it isn't confirmed by any means, the Coyotes will very likely be relocating. They will very likely be gone, and a humongous, crazy chapter in the NHL's history will likely be over. And even though it was a disaster, I can't help but get a little sentimental over it. It was a disaster, but it was a fun disaster to watch. Let us know in the comments down below, though, what do you guys think about the Arizona Coyotes right now? What do you think about their situation? Do you think it could still be revived? But where do you see the Coyotes moving as well? If they already moved, could you see Houston, Salt Lake? Do you still think Quebec City could be in the cards? Let us know down below. And of course, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you enjoyed the video and want more content just like this. You won't want to miss it. And of course, make sure you share the video with all the hockey fans, all the Coyotes fans, all the NHL fans you guys know online. Get the situation out to them and click on this card for all of my hockey talk right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.